Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. It's a really important discussion we've got this week about winning a new deal for local government workers. Hope you're all well and staying safe. This is obviously a really crucial discussion, it's really topical. I'll keep this introduction really brief so we can hand straight over to our speakers. Just to let you know a little bit about us and who we are, my name's Helen, I'm Director of the Unions. You might know us as TULO. We're the 12 affiliated unions to the Labour Party, the collective voice of working people at the heart of the Labour Party. And our job is to work together to win a Labour government, to change working people's lives for the better, and to make sure that that union voice is at the heart of our party. It's only by working together through that collective power of trade unions and the Labour Party together that we can win that government and transform working people's lives. You can find out a bit more about us at labourunions.org.uk. You might already be signed up, do register with us so you can hear more about the work that we do. So just to set the scene a little bit about today's webinar, we've heard loads and loads about worker heroes recently. We clap for them every Thursday. They're the people who've put themselves in harm's way to keep us safe, keep us cared for, keep us fed, and keep our communities running during this pandemic. The teaching assistants, the refuse workers, the child protection workers, the cleaners, the cooks, so many more who keep our communities going in good times and in bad times. They are superheroes, and in just a couple of hours we'll be out on our doorsteps clapping for them, as will most of the cabinet, I am sure. But it's quite clear that applause just isn't enough. If we value key workers, if we value these heroes, we should be paying them properly. But they're not paid enough. It's been a 22% real terms pay cuts for local government workers over the last 10 years. And now with local government pay discussions, there is a real opportunity for the government to put their money where their mouth is. They stand on their doorsteps and clap for key workers like the rest of us. But that applause is not enough. It's time for them to show local government workers that they are worth it and they're worth this pay rise. Now, we're joined by three reps of the main local government worker unions tonight. We've got Rehana Azam, the National Secretary of GMB, John Richards for Unison, and Jim Kennedy, National Officer of Unite. They're going to talk to us about the local government pay discussions, give us background on local government pay and the impact of that austerity over the last 10 years, talk about the current pay claim, and also put into context the work that these superheroes are doing during the pandemic as well. We'll also be joined by some local government workers who will give us that direct insight into the experiences of frontline workers, both on pay and on some of those challenges during coronavirus. Sarah James, who's a GMB rep at Sandwell Council, Sean Fox, who's a Unison rep in Haringey, and Danny Hogan, who's a Unite rep in Greenwich. I'm going to just introduce the speakers, and then after we've had the first three, I'm going to be handing over to my colleague Joe, who's going to be bringing in those frontline workers to the debate and also facilitating a discussion with your questions to the panel. You can see a little box at the bottom of the screen, so if you've got a question you want to raise or something you want to be part of that discussion, if you just type it in there. So this is going to be a really interesting discussion. It's really topical. I've got loads more of these lined up for the next few weeks, which I hope you'll be able to join us for as well. With nothing else to say on this, I'm going to hand over to Rehana to give us the GMB's take on local government pay.
Thank you very much. And is it good evening? I don't know. It still feels like everything feels like a one long day. So hello, everybody. Rehana Azam, Head of Public Services at GMB Trade Union and GMB Lead Negotiator for Local Government. And just to put it into context, GMB membership is across all local authorities, schools, academies and contractors. And to be clear, there are only 3 recognised trade unions across local government and schools that negotiate national joint council pay terms and conditions across England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And they're all on the platform today. From school support staff to refuse workers, from town hall workers to social care workers. Between us, we represent and negotiate the pay terms and conditions of over 1 million workers. And to all of those joining the session today, I just want to say how proud we are to represent you and thank you for joining us today. Whilst everyone comes together, as it's already been said, to applaud workers on a Thursday, we need to move beyond this because it just isn't enough. And we in the GMB will never apologise for talking about pay and the value of workers that remains to go unrecognised. Our local government workers have been on the front line of the fight against coronavirus throughout this pandemic. They've organised and coordinated essential and critical local services and have been keeping our communities safe, clean and accessible. On a daily basis, our members working in local government have continued to put themselves into harm's way on the front line of this crisis. So I'm particularly looking forward to listening to our everyday public sector superheroes later. This is especially true for our members working in care homes, where we've seen the biggest increase in deaths since the start of the outbreak. It's heartbreaking, but it makes us all very angry. Angry that this government have not discharged their duty of care properly to staff or their residents. And it's right that we call time on all the privatisation that has sucked the life out of our public services. And do you know what? As we went into the lockdown, you would have heard it, the government made great claims. They said they will stand with local councils at this difficult time and that the government will do whatever is necessary to support these efforts. Well, I have to say the government have very much let government workers down. And that's why the GMB continues to call for a people's bailout, guarantee wages, protect people and save lives. And just on wages, we have to look at this against the new reality that our members now face every day. We cannot go back to business as usual. Whilst we bust the pay cap in 2018, we have endured a decade of pay restraint. 22% is the loss of value for a local government worker. And that's why we are demanding government fund a fair pay increase for local government workers in the current pay round that we're in just now. The current pay offer, you might already know from the NJC employers, is 2.75%. Offers very little by way of a catch-up on years of lost earnings that fall well below what local government workers need. So we need your help as we lobby government to get them to boost the current pay offer, which stands at 2.75%. And all three trade unions have campaigns on this, and you can visit our website for more information. The COVID-19 crisis has shown that our local authorities are our invaluable resource. It has also reminded the public that our council and school staff have been the unsung heroes for our communities for far too long. Our local government workers are saving lives and keeping our country going, and they deserve proper work terms and conditions. And only yesterday we heard there's a renaissance taking place across the trade union movement. Membership is growing and we've had a surge of more women joining the unions than ever before. But the only way we're going to keep building on trade union membership growth is to organise, build the leaders of the future and deliver proper pay justice. And that's what we're fighting for in the GMB. So in solidarity, everybody, thank you.
Thank you, Rehana. That was a really good introduction to this one. And I think just really getting across that this is actually a matter of life and death, and that government are asking these workers to put their lives on the line and to not have the respect to pay them properly while doing these essential jobs is just so stark, isn't it? I think I'm going to hand over to Jim now, and then hopefully John from Unison will be able to join us shortly. So over to Jim Kennedy from Unite.
Yeah, thanks, Helen, and thanks to Tulo for organising the debate tonight. Absolutely crucial debate in terms of recognising and valuing the real heroes that sustain our communities and are actually pivotal to our society. We're quite proud in Unite. We've got a fantastic national trade union banner for our local authority sector, and the message that goes across it is from cradle to grave. And that's what local authority workers do. They look after our communities from the time they're born to, unfortunately, the time that they pass away. We register their births. We conduct their marriages. We look after adoption and fostering. We look after our elderly and our young. We look after our vulnerable in the care homes. We are there. Local authority workers are there every single day supporting our communities. Our community could not survive without our local government heroes, and they are heroes. And we're quite proud. We produced a Real Heroes video at Unite, and that's had now over 600,000 views. And it's a simple video. It outlines the work that they do. It also outlines the lack of value placed on local government workers, both by the local government employers and indeed central government. I mean, Rehana has said quite a bit about the process in terms of that and the 10 years of cuts. But it's worth reminding people that for 10 years, local authority has lost hundreds of thousands of jobs, placing additional strain and stress on the workforce that remains. And part of our pay claim focused in on that. And we will continue to push on that aspect because that's vitally important and all. But let's put the 2.75% in context, because sometimes when people look at 2.75%, they think, well, you know, that ain't too bad. But for those at the bottom of the pay scale, that's £1.83 a day. That's not even enough for a cup of coffee. That's how much local government employers value their workforce. The most precious resource that local authorities have is its workforce. And it's quite correct we talk about care workers, but it's important context that a residential care worker in local authorities over the last 10 years has seen a real terms cut of 21% in their wages. And on the day that the local government employers made the offer of 2.75, RPI was standing at 2.6%. So it's not a pay rise, it's a standstill offer, which makes it even more unacceptable in terms of that. Now, you're quite right, Rehana's quite right, and everyone on this call will know that our care workers, our refuse workers, the workers who work in cemeteries and crematoria and many other workers are daily, during this crisis, are placing their lives on the line. And you would expect both central government and the local government employers to recognise that. But let's be clear, when we got the offer, the local government employers within that offer said they were recommending that they would write to central government and ask for more money for pay for their workforce. Unfortunately, latterly, and John and Rehana will confirm this, we got correspondence back from the Local Government Association Executive Advisory Board that plays a coordinating and strategic role for local government. And that's important. They play a strategic role. They say that they are not going to take forward the employer's recommendation to ask central government for more money. So that's a strategic decision. They say at the end of the letter how much they appreciate and value the workforce, but they've made a strategic decision not to ask for more money. So the joint unions have been working well together. We all have of course, we campaign, we communicate with our own members. We call out the local government employers for their hypocrisy in terms of what they said in their original offer to their subsequent U-turn on that. We know that local government workers have huge public support in terms of they've become, if you want, even more visual in terms of the way they provide the services to the community. I'm sure we'll talk about insourcing at some point, but our position is quite clear. Public services should be delivered by the public sector. And we've experienced some of the very worst practices by private sector contractors during this crisis, you know, over abuse of furlough and many other things. And we'll remember that when this crisis is over, and we will highlight that. So, look, I know I see John's back on the line now. So all I would ask everyone on the call, look at the video, the Real Heroes video, support any campaigning that we do, contact your councillors, contact your MPs, support local government workers. They are the backbone of our communities. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Putting that in the context of the last 10 years is absolutely absolutely critical, because as you say, it's not just the fact that we're talking about the 22% pay cut real term in 10 years, but also that increased burden, the impact of outsourcing and privatisation. This has been 10 years in the making, and then, as you say, seeing all those workers, seeing everyone going out and clapping for our key workers, but not even £1.83 a day to say thank you for what they have done and what they are still doing in the current crisis, I think says an awful lot. So thank you, Jim. I'm really pleased that we've now been joined by Unison, who's going to be able to give take an angle on the local government pay discussions. And after that, I'm going to hand over to Joe, who's going to facilitate a discussion and also bring in some of the frontline workers that are here to talk about their experiences as well. So welcome, John, and over to you.
Thanks very much, and my apologies for being late. It's all getting exciting in schools at the moment, and so we're trying to we had a meeting this afternoon with the Secretary of State, Gavin Williamson, and obviously we're just sorting out materials and trying to agree a joint statement with the TUC on that. So that's where I've been, and apologies, I'm also going to have to nip off early because I've got to go and do a few other bits and pieces. You understand that with the June the 1st coming fairly swiftly, and a lot of our members being asked to go into schools before we think it's safe to do so, we need to give advice to those members about what we do. So that's what I'll be working on for the next couple of hours. But anyway, back to local government pay, and as Jim said, we've also had some videos out. We've been running now for a couple of years a campaign called Public Service Champions, and it's about the hidden workforce within the public sector. It's about Jim and Rehana have talked about cleaners, refuse collectors. It's a range of other workers who just haven't received the recognition they should do. Funny enough, the Local Government Association showed that video at their conference last year, and also that was when conferences were allowed to happen, of course. So they showed that video, gave it a warm clap. Our General Secretary, Dave Prentice, spoke at that conference, and there were some nice warm words, and it was very positive conference. But unfortunately, the employers haven't yet followed that up fully with the recognition that our members deserve a decent pay rise as a result. And I think that certainly the claim we put in was a very good one. We had recognition from people that it was targeted, it was focused, it made some good points. And we were, during this process, able to push the employers up. I mean, we did ask for them to have a proper negotiation, unlike some previous years where they've just written us a few letters and said, by the way, this is what you're getting, take it or leave it. This time we did have some discussions, we did have some negotiation, and they did move up from the initial 2%, and that was to be welcome. But we were ready to go a little bit further, and I think that we were expecting the employers to go a little bit further. Their last offer was a bit more than a bit disappointing, and in the current climate where people are going out on Thursday nights, clapping their health workers, clapping their care workers, clapping other valuable members of the community, we think people are worth more than a clap. And it's why we ask for a significant pay rise. Many of our key workers on low pay, as Jim and Rehana have said, seen their pay fall behind what's expected. And even employers agree. And so what's really interesting is obviously with their resource board accepting that their offer wasn't enough, and we're prepared to go to government and to go to the Chancellor to actually write to that something. I mean, the stories come out, I don't know if people have spoken about it, but a story's come out in the MJ today, sort of giving some details of what happened in that meeting, and I would recommend everyone who is interested to see the inner workings of bureaucracies within council to have a read of that. What's clear is the Labour grouping within that have supported a joint reference with us to go to the government, and the Tories and the Liberals have said no. So we're now stuck in a bit of a difficult situation. We've got a meeting with our NJC committee next week, at which we'll be discussing what we want to do. But I think there's a recognition now that people know how valuable the work that our people do. We put a press release out this week talking about the valuable work, got picked up by a lot of local papers. Now our members and the staff that are out there ought to be really valued, and the government needs to value them, and certainly the Chancellor needs to dip in his pocket. They there's a recognition that there's more money needed for local government, and absolutely we need to fund services, and absolutely central government need to put more into local government. But they also need to recognise that the people who are keeping this country going at the moment are local government staff, and to do that, if they want to have local government staff working there in the future, they need to make them they need to make it worthwhile for our people to do that. So I won't say any more because I don't want to repeat what others have done, but thank you very much for inviting me to do this, and I hope people will join with us and the solidarity we've shown with you, the unions, and carry on working, and let's get out there and try and push the government to pay us what our members deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That was fantastic. Really good way of setting up the conversation. And thanks again to Rehana and for Jim for setting up the context for this discussion really, really well. Now I want to delve a bit more into. So obviously we've heard about kind of in the abstract, I suppose, what our local government workers, key worker heroes, have been doing. Their vital role from cradle to grave, as Jim said, and in protecting us, keeping us safe, providing for and secure, the vital roles that they play. But it'd be really good now if we can hear from some of the local government workers, which have been on the front lines over the past few months, and on that note, I'd really like to hand over to Sarah James, who is, I believe you're a GMB rep in Sandwell. Is that right, Sarah?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm a full-time facility rep, so I don't do my normal job. I work representing members on a daily basis.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So what's the? Can I just start by asking what's the last few months been like for most of the people that you represent?
Crazy is one way to put it. I think we say that right across the public sector and in local government. It's getting used to. So for me personally, I've had to, like many of my colleagues, many of our members, had to adapt to working from home. Right at the start of the lockdown, we were all sent home, advised where we can. So it's been a change, a real challenge to get IT working. Doing meetings virtually rather than going around and speaking to people. So that's for us who've been quite protected, if you like, being able to work from home. Although that does bring its own battles with not having paperwork to hand, people who are neurodivergent, so struggling as well with changes they may need. But it's been really hard for our workers keeping our services running. So our members working in refuse, particularly our members working in schools, our brilliant teaching assistants and teaching staff, and especially for our care workers. I mean, just to put it into perspective, we've had, as of the end of last week, 4 RIDOR reportable COVID confirmed cases in one department in adult social care, which brings about a massive worry, not only for those members who have been diagnosed and their families, but also for our members who still continue to go to work, putting themselves, as Rehana has already said, putting themselves in harm's way in order to look after our most vulnerable.
Fantastic. Thank you. And obviously, in spite of all that stress, that strain, that difficulty, those challenges, they've managed to keep the show on the road in a really impressive way. And they've managed to, I think, really capture the sort of hearts and minds of the public whilst doing so. And the outpouring of support for key worker heroes like local government workers, like the local government workers that you represent, is clear, isn't it? So, do you think that the people that you represent, they feel that they've got the support and the good wishes and the thanks of the people in your council?
So I think I got what you said. My screen was breaking up a little bit then on the microphone. But yeah, the people, our workers know they've got the support of the public. We see it week in, week out. I mean, when I go for daily walks, when I'm able to drag myself away from the screen, you see the pictures in the windows. Yes, rightfully thanking the NHS, but also thanking their postal workers, they're thanking the key workers, thanking their teaching assistants. I mean, we had an influx in Sandwell. I mean, I'm lucky that I've got one of our reps works in refuse, sending us pictures of the bins with thank you, keep safe. Comments such as we've disinfected our bins to keep you safe. Comments like that have made a huge difference. But when you've got the government standing in their communities on a Thursday night, or even at the door of number 10, clapping their hands, it's nothing more than a PR stunt, because they're not backing it up. It's just empty words. We heard it from Theresa May when we had the awful atrocities that happened at Grenfell Tower, and we're still hearing it now. So it's a change of leader, but it's not a change of policy. It's just empty words.
I think that sums up the feeling that many of us are feeling right now. So thank you for that. That was a really powerful and clear point. It seems, you know, the public are very much in favour of a decent pay rise for our public sector and key worker heroes that have kept the show on the road. But at the moment, the government are resisting, and that's where we're at the moment. You know, as we said in the introduction to this session, to this event, that it really is it's an acid test for the government. You know, this is the first real kind of test for whether they're going to put their money where their mouth is in terms of truly supporting our key worker heroes and paying them what they should be paying them. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was great. I might bring you back in a minute, but just now I'm going to hand over to Sean. Sean Fox, you are a Unison rep at Haringey Council. I believe that's correct. Excellent.
That's right. Yeah.
Fantastic. And
yeah,
I wonder what Sarah said. Is that sort of chime with what you've experienced over the last few months, particularly the pressures, the strains, but also the kind of, you know, the public support?
I mean, certainly as. I mean, obviously it was hit hard first in terms of coronavirus, as in we were the epicenter for the first probably 3 or 4 weeks in terms of cases and impact. And the experience Sarah described is very similar to the one we had, where you walked into work one day and you walked out the next day with a laptop under your arm and got told to get on with it, basically. But our members in Haringey have been basically keeping the community together in many ways. Many of the people who would normally be sitting behind a desk are out actually delivering food parcels, doing shopping for people, doing all those things that actually you hear about, but normally don't get recognised for. The situation in our schools are that we've got loads of vulnerable kids, so proportionately we've got a lot of children already in school. Our workforce in Haringey and our community is overwhelmingly black, so that creates its own issues, and we've got high levels of poverty. I think it's without a doubt the situation that our members are doing above and beyond what you'd expect of them, and they're doing that because they care. They're doing that because they believe the community is important to them. Around half of my members actually live in the same borough they work in. Others live in. Many of them experience the same things their residents do, in terms of poverty, in terms of low pay, and in terms of care work in particular. As Sarah said, we've got in London nearly all care workers are outsourced. They're on minimum wage. It's all very well the government telling them to go on sick pay, to go on self-isolation or sick pay, but they don't get any. Well, they get statutory sick pay and have to try and live on it. I think it is the public do recognise us, and certainly, I mean, our local council have been supportive in that sense. They ran a campaign around the waste management contract. Our waste is outsourced at the moment. I'm picking up Jim's point loud and clear. Actually, if local government workers are at the very bottom of local government are the people who have actually already been privatised, because they're the people who, when they do go off sick, don't get sick pay. They're the people who don't get as much annual leave, they don't get a proper pension, all the things that are wrong. A pay rise can't fix that, but it will help to do so. I do think the public are starting to understand what we do, and they've got past the idea that effectively local government workers are pen pushers, and that local government workers aren't as important as some of the other groups in the public sector. I do think that's something that a message that we've got to build on that. We've got to absolutely take that message out to the public, and out to the politicians. And I couldn't agree more on the idea that I find it hypocritical that I see Boris Johnson on his doorstep clapping this. I see him shaking hands with nurses when he's going on to hospital, even though he was told not to. I see local MPs waving and greeting low-paid local government workers and health workers, but then saying we won't give you any more money. But I think the point that Jim was making earlier is really important, that it's not just the government, it's the fact that the national employers weren't even prepared to ask the government for more money to fund a pay rise. I just find that bizarre. The idea that you wouldn't ask is just unbelievable. The idea that you would say, okay, well, this is our offer because this is what we can afford, like it or lump it, is just something that I find very hard to conceive alongside all that supposed solidarity and clapping that we see every Thursday night. So I do think we're in a particularly good position now to push this forward, but we will need to support the public, because I think none of us are naive enough to think Boris Johnson is going to give us anything for nothing, or that the employers are going to actually ask him for anything for nothing. So it's going to be public pressure and trade union organisation, and a bit of confidence on the part of our members, something that, as John said, we've got our committee of our national lay reps next week, and the first thing is actually to win people over to the argument that this offer isn't good enough, and this offer, if we are to consult on it, this offer needs to be buried and thrown into the dustbin, and they need to come back with something better. But yeah, I do think things are changing. I do think we've struck that mood. I mean, our memberships, similar to the GMB, has been going up noticeably, and we are one of the unions that break that stereotype of a trade union, of course, because something in the region of 75% of our members are women. Nearly half of them would identify as being black. They're not the people typically see as the trade unionists, but they are the people who are at the heart of services. So I think that's probably all I can say for now, because I've probably repeated a lot of what others have.
I was muted. Helen just sent me a message. Thank you, Helen. I tell you what, it was a brilliant point. It was a brilliant point. So Sean, you said something that really struck me in what you said was that a lot of the workers that you represent, they do it because they care. They do it because they care. And I don't know if you just want to add anything to that, in terms of, do you feel that government is taking that goodwill, the motivation that frontline local government workers have, and all government workers have, on the whole, they're taking that for granted, and instead of working with that and saying, okay, let's work with you to make our public services excellent, the best that they can possibly be, whilst looking after you and working with our trade unions, they're using that goodwill as a way to avoid paying them what they're worth.
Absolutely. I mean, in areas such as schools, we've seen it for years, where the schools are running, our members keep them safe, and it's our members who will decide whether the schools are open on June the 1st, not Boris Johnson, as far as I'm concerned. But across the piece, they have always traded on that goodwill, and on some extent on guilt tripping people to saying, oh well, you'll have to do this work because it really matters, and things. But that doesn't equate to, by the way, we'll recognise you in terms of paying conditions.
Fantastic, thank you so much. I'm going to try and get Rehana back. So I'm going to say bye to you for now, Sean. Thank you so much appreciated. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for all your work. Please stay on the call, and like I say, hopefully I'll be able to bring you back for some more discussion later. But that was really good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. So just brilliant. We've got Rehana back. Thanks, Rehana. I've heard a couple of things about mentioned in terms of the national employers and who pays for the settlement, who pays for the wages, how the bargaining works. And there's a couple of things which have been teased out, but as you know, myself, I'm not an expert in local government and these negotiations. So could you speak a little bit to how the negotiations actually work? And I think it was Sean that said, it could have been John, but he said that the national employers haven't asked the Treasury for more money. So could you just explain that a little bit so everyone, including myself, know exactly how this process works?
And I really do welcome the question, really, because what we're doing next to lobby government will matter. So everybody that's listening to this session, we need your help around that. So in short, in terms of the pay negotiations, we submitted the pay claim last June, and then we went, we've been in this constant talks with the employers. And I think everybody will know, but I'll just make the point. The first offer was 2%. And we just said no, it's a no from us, and we went back round the negotiating table. And then when we went into the lockdown, it was abundantly clear very, very quickly that most of our members across public services were very much still in work. And as the days and weeks went on, it just become much more apparent just how difficult it was for our local government workers fighting this pandemic. I mean, we've heard some of the most horrific times our members have had, whether it's been lack of PPE, whether it's been not getting tested, whether they've not, whether in a vulnerable group and they're not being adequately supported and so on. So there's been a series of things that has been happening. So what we did as a joint trade union side was that whilst we were responding to the pandemic, was the right thing to do, we didn't want to sort of like put pay stuff on the back burner. And there's, people have different views around that, but we were very solid on the point that we really do now need to make the case again to government and the employers that if there was ever a time that we were going to recognise the value of local government workers, it was now. So what we did was we wrote a very strong letter to Boris and the Chancellor, and just sort of say we need to make sure that local government workers are treated the same as everybody else. So it's not just about NHS, and whilst we have big membership in the NHS and the ambulance and the care sector and so on, our local government workers are everyday heroes. Sometimes just sort of get left behind, and it's our job to make sure that we amplify the voices. So the local authorities would have budgeted a certain amount of money for the pay increase. And what they're saying to us right now is that they can, within their budget, they can offer 2.75%. However, and as Jim already said, you can't negate the environment that we're working in. So 2.75%, even if we went into lockdown, is pretty poor. 2.75% when people's lives have been put at risk, it's an insult. And that's why we've made the case directly to the Chancellor, to the government. You've got to boost this 2.75%. We're not being unrealistic. Our members have lost 22%. We've already said that, okay? But we're not being unrealistic. Our pay claim was for 10% or £10 an hour. That's where we wanted to land as a starter. We've got a big catch up to do, but it goes back to it. Our precious resource right now are our key workers. And if we can't make the case in the current circumstances, then we really do need to work out what we're doing here. And that's why the crucial thing for us is there is a renaissance. People are joining the trade union. We are building worker power. And what we've got to do is channel that worker power. And that's why we've all launched the campaigns. Go on the GMB website, write to the Chancellor, write to your councillors. Don't let those councillors off the hook, we don't want them to clap, which is great, fine. But you know what? Clapping ain't going to pay the bills. And our members are on the breadline in some cases. And colleagues have already said it, predominantly women, predominantly people of colour. And if you look at the actual statistics that are coming out, they're scary. If you are from a BAME background, you're 3 times more likely to catch the virus and die. If you are a man in low pay, you're twice as likely to catch the virus and die. Now, we can't ignore these facts. And when we're saying people are putting their lives at risk, the statistics are backing it up. So that's why we're making the case. And in terms of, I think for us at the moment it's less about how we get the money in place. It's more about getting the government to pay up, frankly, and that's what we want to focus on.
Thank you. Very, very clear. So absolutely, the responsibility lies with central government. And that's something that we need to be really, really clear of as trade unionists, as Labour Party supporters at the moment, because we have obviously a lot of good Labour councils that are doing everything they can, but the context, the responsibility ultimately lies with central government. So I think that's something that we all need to be aware of as we make, as we make the case for a proper, decent pay rise for our local government heroes. I think we've got Dan now. Dan, have you managed to sign on and you're with us?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. So Dan, you're a Unite rep in the London Borough of Greenwich, is that right?
Yes, even the Royal Borough of Greenwich now.
The Royal Borough, oh wow.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us. I just wonder if you could just speak, as others have as well, but just really about the last few months in particular, the real, the strains, the stresses, the difficulties of keeping the show on the road during COVID.
Yeah, I mean, my day job is a substantive post. I work with adults with learning disabilities. I'm unfortunate to be on facility time now, but I still advocate for people with learning disabilities. So I've been closely involved in that sector. The last few months, a bit like the last 10 years, have been a battle. And I'm also, my lay position in Unite, I'm the chair of the London and Eastern Local Government Committee. And we've been fighting back for these last few months. I led a strike for waste workers in Bexley Serco. 150 bin workers, men and women, were on strike. And we still got a live ballot. We stopped the strike on the 24th. But even then, we had to carry on the strike. And I must... careful who's listening, but we even had a few hours what I'd call back in the old days unofficial action, and that was to get these people going out collecting bins in Bexley Council, even though we're in Greenwich, they're in our branch. The lowest at the time was £8.59 an hour. They've got a rise to £8.75 because the minimum wage has gone up. We had to stay out so that they were guaranteed full pay if they went off for isolation, for family or friends, or you will know the drill, apart from Cummings. But also, instead of Serco wanted to give a majority of those workers £95 a week, and we stayed out and we won. So all those, and up to 50 of them over the period of this crisis, have had full pay. Now, there's a lot of difference, even on the low pay, there's a lot of difference between 500 and 500 quid and 90 quid. We've also got we had a live ballot. We're on strike at Woolwich Ferry, and I'm proud to say we're still hanging in there. But we've had the victory there, where we looks like we've got a pay deal there. But also TLFL are bringing it back in house. We've also got two live strikes. My colleagues in Hackney Enforcement, run by APCO, and Ealing Enforcement, run by Serco. So, but what I will say, here's the big thing: what we're fighting for. My job, I've done it for over 30 years now. In learning disability, we're proud to say support workers, caring and supporting adults with learning disabilities. It's a job I've loved, and I wouldn't say I do it for free. I wouldn't say it's a vocation, but I love my job. But I don't need to be robbed. I do my job, and over the years, we're on £15 an hour. Compare that to where I live in Bexley, doing a similar job. Bexley Council are paying people £9 an hour. The loaders who we fought for an in-house service in Greenwich, I've got to praise Greenwich Council, the loaders are on £13 an hour. It's a lot different than the £8.50 an hour. You can see the difference, and what they're fighting for in Ealing enforcement workers who strike, traffic wardens get the most vile abuse. And it's the same with the enforcement officers in Hackney, again, coming out on very low pay, just about getting the living wage, which is £10.85 in London. But again, no sick pay. And these is what we're fighting for. And we've been doing these battles for a long time. And what I would say, yes, we have to look at where we've perhaps gone wrong and what we haven't done for 10 years. Between us, we haven't organised a national strike since 2015. I know the legislation's changed, but we've got to look at what we're doing as trade unions and the leaders of, one of my comrades said what the figures were. But we've got to show that fight, and we've got to lead, because we can write so many letters, but be careful, they're not just begging letters. We've got to demand a living wage, a decent wage for workers. What I will say is what we've got to do is a lot of the labour councils have got to join us, and too many of them are still, I hate to use the Ealing, Hackney labour councils that are still using the companies like Serco and APCO. And I think that's a disgrace up and down the country. And what we need to do in Chulo is we need to be calling that out. I mean, I'm getting a bit depressing, aren't I, really? But the Labour Party produced the most fantastic document on local government for the last 50 years. With the democratisation of services. I mean, perhaps it wasn't the most catchy title, but that manifesto that never really got an L in the election. But many things that are in that can be done now, can be done by Labour councils, can even be done by some Tory councils. But that's the fight we've got to have. And it's across the board, because we are the barometer, we are the benchmark, that's probably a better word. In social care, I've worked for almost 35 years in social care. And through that working all that time for Greenwich, I will have a good pension. I've loved the work I've done. I've managed to do so much training, and, it's been there. And I work with people who are cared for. But the number of tragic stories I've heard in the private sector of people being that poor, they've had to go into work and have died. And it's heartbreaking. And that's what we're fighting for. And I don't think it should be. I'm never one for. I cry at soppy movies and all that, but I want respect to my colleagues. We had a meeting of my colleagues today, and many of us have stayed working for the organisation. Also, it's Greenwich Living Options, a fantastic little organisation. And do you know the problem we've had about staffing in COVID-19 and my workplace of the 10 homes? We've had too many staff in, because everyone's turning up, everyone's got great conditions, and because the residents are not allowed to go out, we've got too many staff involved. Now that's a fantastic idea, and I'm really touching wood, is we've managed to have safe working practices and no one's died. But the perspective I need to put it in is that the people we are supporting and caring for, my view is we're not just fighting for wages, we're fighting to change this society we live in. Because my view is, you might have guessed I'm a bit of a Marxist, but my view is, and I saw some of my old mates there, John, my old cricket mate, and Sean, we go back years, we've been fighting the same battle in London for years and years and years. But what we are fighting for is dignity and respect for us. But the dignity and respect, because we had that union as power, 20,000 people wouldn't be murdered by this government in care homes, and it's disgrace. It's a real privilege to speak to everyone. And I think we as trade unions, we've got to call on our friends in the Labour Party. We need that, perhaps sometimes all the years, many of us in local government, how many little demos have we had on town hall steps? And I think what I'm calling on is a lot of the Labour councils to come on those steps with her. It's a lot better we're on their same side. But listen, real privilege and solidarity, comrades.
Thank you, Dan. That was very clear, very forceful. And despite what you said, it wasn't actually depressing, because you went through a whole list of victories. I
was reminded of playing cricket with John. That was depressing. I think that's what, I didn't.
Thank you so much, Dan. Much appreciated, mate. Keep up the good work. Thank you. So, Jim, Rehana, so there's a couple of things here which I think we can talk about. One is about outsourcing, the role of private companies, and also about what good Labour councils can do to move that, to shift that agenda, to move services in-house, to ensure excellent, high-quality local public services. There's good examples out there. Can you speak to those good examples and where that's happened, where that's worked well, and where the Labour and trade union movement have worked really well together for the benefit of both? I don't know if you want to go for that, Jim. You've been off for a bit.
Yeah. Look, the fact is, Rehana's mentioned the councillors and Dan's mentioned councillors. We've got sort of a contact with councillors throughout England, Wales, and Northern Ireland at the moment, asking for them to support our claim for a fair deal for local government workers. And we've got a few hundred who have come out with that. But quite frankly, that's not enough. We want councillors to be more vocal in supporting their workforce. And we think that, quite frankly, it's unacceptable that this is not happening quite literally in thousands. They should be tapping us on the shoulder rather than us tapping them on the shoulder to support our campaign for a fair wage. And it's worth mentioning, when we talk about, because I've listened to the debate, when we talk about the refusal of the local government association to request additional money for the workforce, and Sean touched on now, it's an amazing thing that's happened there. Not only is it a U-turn, it's just, beyond comprehension that they won't do it. But they go on to say we will be asking for more money to protect our services. My question is, who do they think delivers the services? Without the workforce, there are no services. And Danny mentioned, he says it's not a vocation. I think for the majority of our members and council workers, it is almost a vocation. And the employers are, quite frankly, are taking advantage of that. There is no respect for local government employees at the moment from local government, or they would have asked for more money. It's the workforce that delivers the services, and they should have a proper value attached to the services they deliver. £1.83 a day is not enough. It's as simple as that. In terms of the pay, I just want to come back on a couple of things. In terms of the pay claim, it was a different type of pay claim this time. We touched on a number of issues, and I just want to, go into one that highlights the rather disingenuous view towards the claim, and indeed, therefore, our members. The claim was different in that, as Rehana and John pointed out, in previous years, we've had an offer letter. It's the first and final. Off you go. You go and consult and come back to us. Well, this time in the claim, we quoted the ILO Convention on Collective Bargaining because we want proper collective bargaining. Now, at the moment, the employers are saying the bargaining process is finished, but we don't accept that. We don't accept that. We are still pushing to get that increase. That's why we've written to the Chancellor and Gemrick to try and do that. So that was contained within the claim. But it was also part of the claim in terms of the long hours culture in local government, unpaid overtime and all that. We looked at all those issues and we called for an addition of 1 day in annual leave. Now, we said that should be the minimum for those with 5 years service or those above 5 years service. And the employers, like I say, in a disingenuous fashion, have said, oh, your claim only applied for those on the minimum. It didn't. It was a minimum with that level of service and a minimum for that level of service. That's the lengths they go to. And Dan talked about respect. There is no respect when they skew the wording in our claim to sort of offer, quite frankly, a unacceptable level in terms of annual leave. Local government is relying on unpaid overtime. our members, council workers, suffer long hours, stress, ill health. So, look, I know we're running on time. I see we've got nearly 160 people on the call. What I want to ask people to do is support our campaign, the Joint Unions campaign for a fair deal for council workers. Contact your councillors, get your councillors to support our call for a fair pay deal, GMBs, Unisons, it doesn't matter. Get them to support it, and then we can build on that. We can build on that, and we can push the local government employers, the LGA and central government. You know, finally, I'll say, someone mentioned that local government workers are daily laying their lives on the line, quite literally. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. When you hear the horror stories from our care workers, they are laying their lives on the line. So I say to the local government employers, shame on you.
There we go. Thank you, Jim. Very clear, very, very powerful. Clear call to action for everyone watching the call, and a comradely suggestion to all our Labour councillors to be much more vocal in supporting our frontline workers at this critical time. Thank you so much, Jim. We've got a few minutes left, about 4 minutes left. I'm going to give the last 3 minutes over to Rehana to say whatever you want, and then I'll wrap up in about 3 minutes or so. Over to you, Rehana.
Thank you very much. And just picking up on that issue, and I already said it earlier on, you know, privatisation is sucking the life out of our public services. And I think it's laid bare now in COVID-19 pandemic just how chronically underfunded our public services are. And more importantly, that's deliberate as well. You know, the government have made a choice in this, and they've, you know, it's the full-scale privatisation. You see it playing out in our care homes every day now because of what's happening. You know, and this is why the GMB's position is quite simple. We want services brought back in-house. We want councils to regain control of all our services. You only have to look at the programme of academisations of our school system, you know, and we know what happens once privatisation creeps in is there is a profit. As soon as you introduce profit, then it's either the workers are going to lose out or the public's going to lose out. So I think we really do need to sort of use this opportunity. We're not going to get it again to really spotlight it. You only have to look at what happened at Quillian, the biggest collapse that took place, and there was going to be thousands of public sector services that couldn't be delivered because Quillian had collapsed. I mean, here was a company, cash rich, asset poor, and they were getting away with it. We have to spotlight everything. I think we've got to push our councils to start bringing services in-house, because it's the only way we're going to get equality in the system. I mean, the reason why there are more BAME deaths at the moment because of COVID-19, health inequalities has something to do with that. And why is that? Because there's a choice about where money gets spent and where money doesn't get spent. So, I mean, we could do a whole thing on privatisation and why we need to get back into public services. But I will finish it on this. And I've said it before, you know, our precious resource is our key worker. And we, you know, tomorrow we celebrate 50 years of the Equal Pay Act, 50 years of the Equal Pay Act. Yet our care workers get paid less than £9 an hour. I mean, that's just a disgrace. So we have to, you know, if our membership's growing, we have to coordinate, we have to organise, we've got to build the worker power, but more importantly, we have to build solidarity across the movement, because the only way we're going to win this is we're going to do it collectively. So, you know, we are resetting. I'm pleased we've got this platform tonight where GMB, Unite, Unison coming together. We do want fair pay. We want pay justice. That's what we're looking for. So hopefully we can build on this conversation in the weeks and months ahead. So I just want to say thank you very much, and solidarity, everybody, for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, Rehana. That was fantastic. Join the campaign. Join the campaign. Join the Cross Union campaign. You know, the public are with us on this. You know, the context allows us to be bold, to work together, to across party and across our party and across our broader movement, and let's get the pay deal that our key worker heroes deserve. So we'll leave you on that. Thank you so much for all of our speakers, Rehana, John, Jim, Danny, Sean, Sarah. Thank you to Helen for the introduction. Make sure you signed up to our email list. The next event that we're going to be doing, hopefully, will be next week on rebuilding the social safety net. And stay tuned for more. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. Stay safe and take care. Goodbye.